Hello and welcome back to the Premier League years here on Football Manager 2022. We are on to Season 9 of our deep dive simulation for the 2030-31 season. As we have been doing, we're going to take a quick look back at the 29-30 season just to give ourselves a little bit of a recap going into the new season. Manchester City are once again the defending champions. They have won 3 straight Premier League titles, and again Chelsea are the side chasing them. It's been this way most of the save, so we'll see if it continues in that light through this next season. Manchester United and Liverpool picking up Champions League football. Newcastle and Leicester getting 5th and 6th, so they'll have Europa League. That coming after Leicester also won the League Cup, but it's Arsenal who will play Europa Conference. We've also said goodbye to Bournemouth, Crystal Palace and West Ham for this season, all sides who have been previously relegated during the save, so nothing too brand new there. But as we tick over to 2030-31, we introduce the 3 promoted sides for this season, and once again, it's 3 sides that we are familiar with. 2 sides have come straight back up after getting relegated in the previous season. Blackburn come straight back once again after finishing 18th in the previous season. They come second, still under Frank Lampard, who has not left the club at all. He gets them an automatic promotion spot as they return to the top flight for the 4th time. Yeah, they haven't stayed up on any of the previous 3 occasions. Let's see if they can finally break that duck and have more than 1 season in the league. Frank Lampard's still in charge. He gets his second go with Blackburn in the top flight. The other side coming straight back is Brighton under Graham Potter, who has returned to Brighton after leaving at the beginning of the save. He left in the end in 2025. He did hang around for a while, had a very brief spell at Celtic, and then we saw quite a long spell at West Ham. However, West Ham were relegated. Potter was sacked during the season last year, and he actually makes a return to Brighton. So we'll see if he has a happier time with Brighton than he had at West Ham. The other side coming up to the Premier League for this season is Brentford, another side that we have seen quite a bit of during this save. We see they had a 4-year span here where they were pretty regular. Have spent 3 seasons out of the top flight, where they do return under Slavisa Jokanovic, who has been in charge since 2027. So actually he has been with them through their championship time. Had quite a long time at Stoke, actually, which is interesting, but took on Brentford during the relegation time, and they never sacked him, despite 7th and then 5th of missing out in the playoffs. They then actually win the championship. Actually, if we take a look back at Brighton, we know that they have come through the playoffs to get promoted. They, if we have a quick look, beat Millwall, a side that we haven't seen since season 1 of the save in the Premier League. They beat them, 5-2 on aggregate, and then beat Fulham 2-1 in the final. And if you missed the first 12 minutes of that game, you missed everything. Fulham miss out on a return to the top flight. If we look at Fulham, actually, they've still got Josip Ilicic in charge, and they head into a 4th straight season in the Championship, despite making the playoffs the previous 3 years. So Fulham not having a whole lot of luck in the playoffs. We'll have a look at manager movements, because we know that Spurs and Manchester United were without managers. They've now made moves, and Manchester United have a man in charge. I'm going to nip back just to check nothing else has happened. No. Mauricio Pochettino decides that he has had enough at PSG. He's been there the entire save. He wants a new challenge, and that challenge is going to be Manchester United. This is getting on over 10 years that there's been rumours that Pochettino would take charge at Old Trafford at some point. It finally happens, and we'll see how Pochettino gets on. We see that Spurs actually still haven't hired a new manager at the moment. Dean Rastrick still the man in charge. He is the head of youth development. Yeah, head of youth development at the start of the game. Still in that role, currently the interim boss. We have a look at Job Centre. We actually find that Spurs are not here. So it would appear that they might stick with Dean Rastrick even through the start of the season, maybe. That's going to be something to check when we get to the September stop-off point. If they really decide to go with Rastrick as their manager, that would be an intriguing situation going on there. The only other thing to check out is to have a look at what transfers have gone down at the very, very beginning of the summer transfer window. And we find... No, that was January. I was going to say, I was like, wait, Abel Ruiz, I remember that one. So we have not had too much go down, actually, by the looks of it. Nothing major. A lot of January transfers still sticking out. But we find our biggest move so far. And it makes a whole lot of sense based on what was a heavy discussion point in the last video, in the last season. And it was Manchester United's goalkeeper situation, in which they sold Andre Onana to Newcastle and then never really replaced him. They still managed to get third in the Premier League, which was a very impressive finish for not really having a consistent keeper. But they changed that, and it's £26 million on Alexander Nubel from Sheffield United, who was pretty much the first Sheffield United keeper to play more than one season for them. And now he's gone. So Sheffield United really are going through goalkeepers at the moment. Who is Blade's starting keeper at this point? They've got Maduka Okoye, who is a backup, and Toby Layson, who is also a backup. So Sheffield United need to go out and get a new first-choice keeper. But Alexander Nubel, the new man in goal for Manchester United for this season, will be playing Champions League football, which will be good for him. We find the second biggest transfer is only £500,000 behind, actually, and it's Lovro Zvonarek coming from Hamburg to join Tottenham, a Croatian attacking midfielder. Has spent a little bit of time at Hamburg, actually. He was picked up on a free from Bayern Munich, who brought him in from Slovan Belepo in Croatia, which is his home team. Was playing reasonably well for Hamburg in the second tier. Last 2 seasons have been in the top flight of German football, and he's looked okay. Statistically, I think he's actually doing better than his average rating would suggest. But it's an interesting move, still only 25 years old. And will only be 25 for pretty much the whole season. So this is a nice signing from Spurs. I like this one. Lovro Zvonarek, not a player I've heard of, but good to see him in the league. So we go down a little bit further, just trying to see if we've had a whole lot else. We do find Brentford spending potentially upwards of £20 million on Matezinho, a Brazilian right-back who we did mention with Liverpool a couple of seasons ago. I'm pretty sure I remember mentioning him. He's only played 18 Premier League games across 2 seasons, but Liverpool do get a good £10 million profit on him, and that's without potential add-ons. So it actually was not the worst move from Liverpool at all. But Matezinho joins newly promoted Brentford, who, as we mentioned, are back after 4 years away. So they are trying to stay up as much as they can by making a fairly decent move there. We find Sheffield United using some of the Alexander Nubel money on Romeo Lavia, a Belgian defensive midfielder who got relegated with Crystal Palace last season. So actually joined Palace in January of 2029. So he only spent a year and a half there. Played reasonably well in the Premier League, actually. So Sheffield United make the move to bring him in for just under £15 million. Looks like a reasonably decent player. Isn't stand out amazing in anything, but he's pretty well-rounded. 9 caps for Belgium as well. If you're playing for Belgium, then you are most likely a pretty good player. As Jared Bowen has made a second big move in this save. We saw Bowen go from West Ham to Manchester City, and that didn't pan out at all because he never played a game. And yet Bournemouth then paid £37.5 million for him. I didn't really understand why that happened. But we don't see Bournemouth this year. They got relegated. So they are able to pick up £14 million on a 33-year-old winger as Bowen heads to Chelsea. So that's Chelsea's big move so far. I would imagine there is a bigger signing on the horizon for them. We see Newcastle's biggest signing of the window so far is David Ayala coming in from Boca Juniors, an Argentinian midfielder. Very, very good passing, high work rate as well. So he's quite an industrial player with a little bit of creativity behind him. He was actually signed by Chelsea. I don't think I ever mentioned this because, I mean, he spent, 3.5 years there without ever playing a game. So he never got a mention, went off back to Argentina for a few years, and now returns with Newcastle. So we'll see how much David Ayala gets to play. He is listed as an important player, so hopefully we see quite a lot of him. Will turn 28 before the season starts. Brighton, on their return to the Premier League, get Vitaly Mykolenko, the Ukrainian left-back from Everton, nearing 250 Premier League appearances for Everton, but only 11 last season. Seems that they have moved on to a new left-back, and they capitalise on an over £13 million bid from Brighton. So not a bad move for either side there, to be fair. We find a player leaving Sheffield United for Norwich. Norwich are in the Premier League, yeah. I have to remember that Norwich are in the Prem. Andrea Pirlo's actually doing a really good job there. And actually, I never noticed this last season. Anthony Elanga. Wow, okay, he really didn't develop that well at Manchester United. He's actually spent quite a while at Forest. Did play last season in the Premier League 24 times for Norwich. I missed that transfer. Wasn't amazing. Did get 4 goals though, it was okay. But we see John Caracaburu, a Spanish striker heading to Norwich from Sheffield United. Actually got 6 in 14 for Sheffield United, which is a pretty good effort. It's just the problem that they've got Satriano and Jefferson playing so well up front for them that John was never going to be any more than a backup. So Norwich able to pick him up for £12 million. Long-time Real Sociedad player. That's not a bad move. I think this could be a good one for Norwich. 6 foot, 15 heading. Jumping reach isn't great, but if he's netting 6 in 14 for Sheffield United, Norwich might be onto something there. I think that's not a bad little move, that. We'll see if we can find 1 or 2 more moves. We are getting to below the £10 million mark now. Especially if we can find some teams that we haven't mentioned yet. It doesn't look like there's a whole lot else going on right now. Also, we get a lot more transfers to look at once we reach the end of the transfer window. We do have a couple more, though. We find West Ham, £4.4 million for Cody Drame, who is now 28 years of old. 28 years old, the fullback, coming in from Peterborough in this. Obviously, with Leeds in real life, took in a spell at Middlesbrough and then Peterborough. Now comes to West Ham. You know, West Ham got relegated. I don't know why I'm looking at this. I forgot they got relegated. But the one we can look at is Walter Guardado, going from Penarol in Uruguay to Manchester City for £4 million. A 19-year-old midfielder, physically pretty impressive, technically very sound as well. Looks like he could develop into a very good player. Already 7 caps for his national team as well in Uruguay. And his value is definitely up there. He is listed for loan for this season, but Walter Guardado could be somebody that we see in the future. The last thing we will do at June is take a look at the season preview. We look at the Media Dream 11. They've actually changed the goalkeeper. Now that makes me think, No, Edison is still here. I did start to wonder if Edison had retired, but he hasn't. They've just decided that Allison is now better than Edison. So he is in goal. We've got new gen Arsenal fullback Bjekovic, now 24. He'll turn 25 this season. We are really getting somewhere in this save. Over 100 Premier League appearances for Arsenal. Just an absolute star of a fullback. Can even play centre back really well. This is an absolute star-studded player. Unsporting as well. We'll ignore that bit. But Matsumoto's still there, the new gen Japanese defender. We've got Ruben Diaz and Bukayo Saka listed as a left back. We then see Kai Havertz, Eduardo Camavinga and Kylian Mbappe, all of Chelsea in the midfield, alongside Pedro Preto. We did mention this guy when he joined Liverpool last season, because it was quite a big transfer. His first season in the Premier League was actually pretty decent. 6 goals, 2 assists, and a 7.27 average rating, playing all but 4 of the Premier League games. And he does look like a really, really good player. He's only 5'4", but a perfectionist world-class midfielder. You're not going to worry about that. And he actually makes the media dream 11 for the first time. And the 2 men up front, Benjamin Sesko and Erling Haaland. So Haaland actually gets back into the media dream 11, which makes a lot of sense since he won the Golden Boot last season. If we look odds-wise, we see Manchester City favourites once again, unsurprisingly, with Chelsea in behind. Again, no surprises there. We see Blackburn listed as favourites to go down alongside Reading and Brentford. Brighton actually predicted to stay up just alongside Norwich, who enter a second season. Oh, it's like its 3rd season actually for Norwich. Yeah, 4th season, sorry. It's a 4th straight season for Norwich in the Premier League. How about that? I mean, that is quite surprising. Reading are into their 2nd straight, yes. So we've got some teams trying to make themselves Premier League regulars. Leeds are now down in 11th for odds. They had that one season where they finished 4th and have just dropped off ever since. We've seen Villa have never really pushed on either. It's been Sheffield United who have been the side that have really pushed on at the sort of mid to lower table sides. But what we'll do now is we will simulate ahead to September. It is a World Cup year, so we'll see how the World Cup went and who won that. We'll have a look at the European group stages, and then we'll also get back to the Premier League, where we'll see the first sort of 3 games of the season, how the table's looking, and cover the rest of the transfer window. We've now moved ahead to the beginning of September. The summer transfer window has now closed, but as mentioned, we're going to go through a couple of things before we get back to the Premier League. With it being 2030, it was a World Cup year, and France have won the 2030 World Cup. But again, with an international tournament, I'm more talking about the team that was the runners-up. And in this case, it was Turkey getting the runners-up medals. I don't know if they get medals. But we've had Austria runners-up in the last Euros, and now Turkey runners-up in the most recent World Cup. We see, statistically, it was actually a pretty close game. Turkey dominated possession, dominated the passing. Chances were not lopsided to France at all. But we see that France actually scored 6 times, but 2 of them were disallowed. This man, Mohamed Amoura, he plays for Manchester United, but is only a squad player. This is why we never saw him. £245,000 transfer from an Algerian club. So is he Algerian? He's part Algerian. He was born in France. But he is getting a little bit frustrated, I think. Yeah, he's asked to leave. Leipzig wanted him. So he's just scored 2 goals in the World Cup final, and Manchester United seemingly not willing to make him a regular player. They do have Youssoufa Moukoko up front, who they bought last season. That is a name that maybe should be playing a little bit more. We see Amin Guri putting the nail in the coffin. Turkey actually did have the lead in this game for 4 minutes before Nkunku levelled it up. Great effort from Turkey, but France do win the World Cup. We see the semi-finals. France beat Brazil, and Turkey actually beat Spain 2-0. We look quickly at the quarterfinals. We see Germany got there, Norway got there. Egypt made the quarterfinals. That's a great run from them before falling to Brazil, and Portugal going out as well. So England struggling. China actually made the third round. So that's the last 16. That's a pretty good effort from China there. Uruguay went out last 16. Japan, Senegal. Where are England? What happened? England went out to Uruguay in the second round. That's the last 32. That is a very bad tournament for them. And Pep Guardiola is the new England manager. Left Spain, becomes England boss. Guardiola's decided it's international management that is now his new challenge, and he's going to try and win a World Cup or a Euros. He may have won the Euros with Spain, or he may have joined them after. I'm not exactly sure. But we see some interesting countries, and Turkey making a World Cup final. 4 years' time, host will be Japan. Moving on to European group stages, the groups have been drawn. We're going to start off with the Europa Conference League, where we have Arsenal representing England in that. They've been drawn into Group F alongside Eintracht Frankfurt, Shakhtar Sologorsk, who somehow, this is the second time we've seen them in a group with an English side, which is quite impressive. And then SK Samtredia of Georgia, who I have absolutely never heard of. Arsenal's competition is definitely Eintracht Frankfurt in this group. In fact, I think Frankfurt could well top the group. I'm going to go Frankfurt to top it, Arsenal second. We'll put Sologorsk in third since we've seen them previously, and then Samtredia in fourth. We move up to the Europa League, where we find Newcastle and Leicester as the Premier League representatives. Leicester have been drawn into Group D. They are alongside Trabzonspor, CSKA Moscow, and Apoel Nicosia. I think we saw Apoel Nicosia last year in Leicester's group in the Europa Conference League. So that's quite interesting that they've been drawn together once again. Trabzonspor, we haven't seen them yet, but I'd imagine there'll be a tricky little fixture. And then CSKA, always a difficult game to head to Russia. I think Leicester can come through this group. In fact, I'm going to be confident and say that they will top it. I'll put CSKA in second, Trabzonspor for third, and Apoel in fourth. We go down a little bit further. We find Newcastle drawn into Group F. They are alongside Feyenoord, Besiktas, and TSV Hartberg from Austria. Feyenoord and Besiktas are certainly not easy fixtures. We saw Besiktas had a really good run in the Europa League very early on in the save. And Feyenoord, I think, may have won the Europa Conference League at some point. So it's definitely not going to be an easy group, but with the big transfers that Newcastle have made throughout the save, I'm going to say Newcastle to top it. I'm going to put Feyenoord second and then Besiktas for third, Hartberg fourth. And finally, advancing up to the Champions League, where there will be 4 English representatives. We start with Group B, which contains Chelsea. They'll take on Porto, Atletico Madrid, and Slavia Prague. Good luck to Slavia Prague. Well done on making the Champions League. You're probably coming fourth. I'm going to say that Chelsea will top the group. I'll put Atletico second and Porto for third. Group C contains Manchester United. They're drawn alongside Bayern Munich, Shakhtar Donetsk, and unbelievably, Nîmes again. They've made back-to-back Champions Leagues. Have they won a title? I really want them to have won the title. Oh, they came second. Oh, that is so close. This is the year, Nîmes. This is the year, lads. I can't believe that Nîmes have become like one of the best teams in France, but I'm completely here for it. Man United may well struggle a little bit here. I think Bayern will top the group. Shakhtar and Nîmes are tricky fixtures. I'll be nice, though. The game's pretty nice to English clubs. I'm going to say Manchester United for second. And then let's go Nîmes for third and Shakhtar to finish bottom of the group. We then move down to Group D, where we find Manchester City. They have a group with Inter Milan, Celtic, and FK Sarajevo of Bosnia. That is an unbelievable effort from them. Well done, Bosnia being represented in the Champions League. I imagine they do finish bottom of the group. In fact, I'm just going to keep that group as it was drawn. Man City to win it. They are the defending champions after all. Inter second and Celtic for third. Finally, we are looking for Liverpool. They are drawn into Group G alongside AC Milan, Dynamo Kiev and RB Salzburg. It's teams that we've regularly seen in Europe and mostly the Champions League as well. I'm going to stick with this order. No, I'm going to say Liverpool and Milan will go through. Liverpool to top the group. I'll put RB Salzburg for third and then Dynamo Kiev to finish fourth. The Community Shield has also been played. It was Manchester City who won both the Premier League and the FA Cup. So it went down to second place, meaning Manchester City would play Chelsea. And it went to penalties, but Manchester City eventually come out on top. Goals from Bernardo Silva and Phil Foden gave them a 2-0 lead before Kylian Mbappe and Romelu Lukaku, who is still going, aged 37. He got the equaliser. It went to penalties, and it was a straight 3-0. Chelsea missed all three penalties through Lukaku, Mbappe, and Havertz, while Silva, Foden, and Ederson actually scored theirs. Ederson took the third penalty and then probably saved Havertz's penalty. What a shootout for him. But Manchester City take the first piece of silverware on the season. There is actually another competition that I just realised I haven't shown at all, and that is the UEFA Super Cup. And because an English side has won the Champions League every single year, I should really have been showing it. You can see by the side here, it's been pretty dominated by Chelsea and Manchester City. Barcelona got one in 2023-24, and Real Madrid got one in 2025. But for this season, it was Manchester City taking on the Europa League winners in RB Leipzig. And Manchester City actually have two trophies already on the season. They won 3-1, goals from, a double from Sesko, and then a Haaland penalty, giving them a 3-1 win. There was also a red card for Leipzig, which certainly didn't help them. But Manchester City actually have two trophies on the season already. And with all of that out the way, we are now back to the Premier League, and we find that Spurs have actually hired a new manager, and it's a returning manager, Thomas Tuchel, who ditched Chelsea for Manchester United, was sacked mere months later, went to Spurs, was sacked mere months later, has had to go on a little bit of a recovery journey through Leverkusen, Inter Milan, and then the German national team. And he now makes his long-awaited return to the top flight. It's with Spurs again. Now, Spurs are certainly a better side than they were when he took over in 2023. He returns in 2030, 7 years on. Let's see if Tuchel can do any better this time. But we're going to jump into the transfers before we look at the actual table. See, all these transfers are now ones that have happened in the last summer window. And we actually find that Max Aarons, if I remember correctly, he had a very strange spell at Chelsea. He did. Chelsea bought him really early on, and he only ever played 7 times. Then left to Rangers, then actually went to Nîmes. So he has been a big part of the success in France for Nîmes, and now makes his return to the Premier League aged 30 in the biggest transfer of the summer, which, compared to some of the other summers, it's not the biggest of moves at 66 million. It's still a lot of money, and Nîmes have still made a very, very good profit on him. But Max Aarons, the biggest transfer in 2030 to Manchester United. So they bring in Nubel and Aarons during this transfer window. They have also brought in Adam Dunn from Aston Villa, an Irish new-gen centre-back, who does look pretty good. I mean, his technicals aren't great, but his mentals are pretty good and his physicals are very good. So Adam Dunn comes in as a rotation piece from Aston Villa. Maybe they can develop him a little bit. We shall see. The next biggest transfer was actually an out. It was Manchester City selling Gonçalo Inácio, a Portuguese centre-back who has been there pretty much the entire time. I vaguely remember mentioning him when he first joined Manchester City. In all honesty, I didn't realise he was still there. He's won a good, 5 or 6 Premier League titles? I think it's 6. Whilst he's been at Manchester City, and he has played enough games to register as a medal winner. So he's won an awful lot of Premier League titles without ever being particularly regular in the side, but he finally moves on to Barcelona for £53 million. Still only 29 years of age. He's literally just turned 29, actually, and has over 100 caps for Portugal. So a bit of a weird career for Inácio, really. We find a big move on transfer deadline day. Mattia Vitti, a centre-back that we mentioned when he signed for Chelsea, because he signed in the same window as Wesley Fofana did. But now Chelsea decide that they are okay at the back, and Mattia Vitti moves on to Newcastle for £53 million. Was bit part for Chelsea. Started sort of half the games each season, but wasn't getting consistently regular football. Now should do at Newcastle, though still only listed as a squad player, so maybe not. We find that's what happened. Chelsea let Mattia Vitti go because they have signed Matthias de Ligt, who has just turned 31, over 360 league appearances for Juve, is still an absolutely brilliant centre-back. And centre-backs can certainly be at a high level even when they are older. It's easier for them to keep their level. It is just a 1-year contract, though. Interesting that they've spent £52 million on him and only given him a 1-year deal. So it'll be interesting to see whether that gets renewed. He still looks absolutely spectacular, so it should be, really. Oh, Southampton's young English striker is gone. James Malama, a guy that was getting into double figures each season in the Premier League, got 11 both times, is now off to the Bundesliga for nearly £50 million. That is a good sum of money for Southampton. James Malama now gone. That makes things interesting to see what they decide to do, or if they were able to do anything. Because that move only happened about a week and a half before the deadline. And there's nothing in the first 22.5 million anyway. We see a couple of PSG players coming to the Premier League in Fran Puigmal, a 23-year-old Spanish winger. Physically, pace-wise and agility, extremely impressive. Looks like a pretty solid player. Is going to be a consistent starter for Spurs. Has got a goal, actually, this season without really impressing too much. But Fran Puigmal in for just under 50 million. And then 46 million as we see Marco Canna returning to the Premier League. A guy who was signed for big money by Aston Villa, went to PSG for a season, and now returns to the top flight of English football with Arsenal. Okay, interesting turnaround for him. Find Manchester City's biggest transfer of the window is Mohamed Simakan, the French centre-back who starts out with Leipzig after his spell at Strasbourg. Actually went to Bayern Munich really early on. Has been there for quite a long time as a bit part player. But now joins Manchester City. That's a pretty big transfer for a guy that is actually seen as an important player. I suppose this is the Inácio replacement. So we'll see quite a bit of him then this season. Okay, this makes sense. Leeds actually sell Ersin Destinoglu, who did look at their keeper situation before. Actually, doesn't make a lot of sense, actually. Jakob Hein is here. He's come in from Mainz. We saw him in the season with Derby. They actually have Kepa. I don't think I mentioned that one, but Kepa is only a backup as well. And Zach Hemming just a backup too. So they've decided Carl Jakob Hein is going to get a second Premier League season after his one with Derby. So actually this transfer makes a little less sense. But Nîmes get Ersin Destinoglu using the money that they got for Max Aarons. There is a player exchange in there for Antonin Deval. So as normal when there tends to be a player exchange, I like to look at the player that was sent the other way. This is Antonin Deval, a French midfielder who maybe doesn't have the greatest potential. He looks like an okay player, has a pretty high value to be fair, and he's considered a future prospect, so maybe he can break through. The next player we take a look at is an ex-Arsenal winger who actually came through their academy in the very, very first season. Thanasis Triantafylidis? I'm going to say it's Triantafylidis. It's something along those lines. Now 24 years of age, not long turned 24. Very quick winger. He actually looks really, really good. If you just want him to play straight up winger, he looks like a superb player. The only issue is he's actually left-footed without really having any finishing. So I think that's probably where the problems come from. He must be Greek, right? Yeah, he's got Greek as a second nationality. He comes in at Newcastle. That's for 36.5 million. Has actually got a goal and an assist and 2 player of the matches. So he's been very, very good early in the season for Newcastle. See if he can keep that up. Now this was a player that I was saying to keep an eye on because I thought he could be really good. He did score 16 goals in 25 Premier League appearances, most of those coming off the bench. But he's now gone, and he's actually gone to RB Leipzig. So we mentioned that Leipzig were after a Manchester United striker, because initially they were after Amura. And obviously they didn't get him, so their second option was Murray Gibson. All right then, well, that's a bit unfortunate, actually. He looked quite good. You see Matheus França moving to Spurs from Benfica. I'll probably try and scroll down just a few more, because I am aware that I've been on this for quite a while. We see Norwich making quite a lot of money on a sale of Rafa Carvalho, a Portuguese new-gen defender. Kasper Kozlowski is into the Premier League with Arsenal. Southampton have made quite a bit of money in this window, haven't they? James Malama and Cucho Hernandez. That's quite a bit of money right there. Astor Vranks ends up joining Chelsea as a squad player, central midfielder. Only 27 still, actually. We see a few more players leaving. Reading making quite a big move on Crystal Palace's relegated forward, Mohamed Ali Cho. He had one good season with Palace in the Premier League, where I think he got double figures. We'll see what he can do for Reading. Go down a little bit further, we find Villa bringing in Robert Hernandez from Malaga, a winger/wing-back, who is pretty quick, decent stamina. He looks reasonable, nothing amazing really. We see Sheffield United bringing Luis Sinisterra back to the Premier League. Spent time with Leicester, over 100 Premier League games for Leicester. He makes his return for Sheffield United. We see Southampton's biggest transfer in, as opposed to the out, was actually from their rivals Bournemouth. It's Sekou Koita, who is a 30-year-old striker. Well, obviously they needed a striker, so interesting move though to go to Bournemouth. But they were relegated, so easy to pick up those players. Everton signing Alex Scott from Fulham, 27-year-old attacking midfielder. We see Sheffield United bring in Mert Mulder from AC Milan, 31-year-old right back. Sheffield United have just kind of had this thing of bringing in older players, but it's really worked. We see, what else we got? Blackburn bringing... Are they bringing him back? No, he was at Fulham. Cade Gordon heading to Blackburn. I had a moment where I thought he had already been there, but he hadn't. Nordi Mukiele to Sheffield United. This is what I mean. They love bringing in like 30 to 32-year-old players and just getting really good performances out of them. You see, Burnley's biggest move is Lisandro Martinez from Sheffield United, who is 32. So there you go. Norwich bringing in a player called Lee Han-bum, a South Korean centre-back. I'll try not to laugh at his name. Pascal Traoré to Liverpool from Lyon. That is a new-gen goalkeeper from the Ivory Coast. This is interesting. I'm glad I got this far down in the scrolling. Alisson's not the first choice keeper at Liverpool anymore. It's now Pascal Traoré, Ivory Coast keeper, coming in from Lyon for less than £15 million. Which, to get a new starting keeper for less than £15 million when you are Liverpool is extremely impressive. But we are starting to get the changing of the guards. In fact, Alisson is gone. So from being rated as the best keeper in the league, did he retire? No, this isn't the right Alisson. Where's he gone? I might need to take a moment here to see if I can find what's actually happened here. So I found what happened. He just upped and retired. I don't know whether that was just a retirement out of nowhere or if it was pre-planned. But he was listed in the potential team of the year. He was in the Dream 11. But he decides that he is done. He hangs up the gloves. Alisson has retired. So I'm worried that I was on that screen for quite a long time. This video is actually going quite long already, and we are hardly into it. But we are going to take a very quick look at the Premier League table before we move forward to the November stop-off point. And unsurprisingly, Manchester City and Chelsea are a perfect 3 for 3. Man City haven't conceded a goal. Ederson has 3 straight clean sheets. Wins over Aston Villa, Arsenal and Everton. Chelsea's wins come in over Leicester, Brighton and Southampton. Which means... I'm trying to see where Leicester are. Leicester are actually doing quite well. That loss was only to Chelsea. They've beaten Burnley and Brentford. So they're going all right again. Spurs up there in third. They haven't lost yet either. Sheffield United haven't lost, nor have Newcastle. Just they've drawn 2. If we look to the bottom of the table, 2 sides have lost their 3 opening games, that being Brighton and Norwich. Brighton are getting battered. A 4-1 loss to Chelsea, 4-1 to Everton, 3-0 to Liverpool. Norwich with losses against Arsenal, Sheffield United and Burnley. We then find Southampton with just the 1 point. Leeds with just 1 and Wolves with just 1 as well. Everton actually vaguely starting okay, which is quite nice to see. And Reading getting a win on the board already as they beat Leeds. So we'll see if Reading can somehow earn a 3rd season in the top flight. Blackburn have had a couple draws, which is decent. A good draw with Newcastle in there, actually. And if we take a very, very quick peek over to the player stats, Haaland and Mbappe tied for top scorer in the league. I think that's something I expected to happen a lot more than it has. See, Kai Havertz topping assists. And as mentioned, Ederson with his 3 from 3 clean sheets. But we are now going to go forward to November, where we'll just take a look at the Premier League table and then through a couple team stats and through some of the other player stats. We've now advanced on to the 5th of November, and as you can see from the Premier League table, Manchester City just looking completely formidable. 9 wins from 10. There is actually a defeat in there, which was a 1-0 loss at Old Trafford. And Manchester United are second, though it is only by 1 goal over Chelsea. They're both 5 points behind Manchester City. And then it's actually Arsenal. But again, they're only 1 goal ahead of Liverpool. Both teams on 19 points. And then we see a few teams going back, actually. And it's the regular teams, really. It's Spurs, Leicester. Villa are a little bit more in there than they have been recently. and then Newcastle and Sheffield United. So the top 10 is becoming extremely consistent with the same teams almost every time. If we look towards the bottom end of the table, we actually find Wolves are the only side without a win so far this season. Just 3 draws to their name. They are in their second season back, I believe, after staying up last year, but it's not going too well for them right now. They're alongside Brighton and Blackburn, who both came up this year in the bottom 3, and then Brentford only surviving outside the relegation zone on goal difference right now, alongside Leeds, who are 2 points clear of them. But the 3 newly promoted sides, struggling early doors, all have the same record of 1 win, 3 draws, and 6 defeats. And we see Reading and Norwich are doing okay. They are clear of the relegation zone. Actually, Everton, Southampton, and Burnley are kind of pushing on towards being a top half team. Just need a couple more results to go their way, really. So what we'll do now is we'll jump into team and player stats. Team stats are just tend to look at the goals and the conceded. So this is normally pretty quick. Man City 22 topping the way, as they normally do. But Chelsea and Liverpool quite close in behind there on 21 each. Least goals, Brentford have scored just 6 goals this season, and Blackburn with just 8. Probably means Brentford's defence actually hasn't been that bad. Yeah, so they've conceded 14, which is kind of middle of the pack. It's Manchester City only conceding 5 goals this season. That is an incredible start from them. Arsenal with just 8 conceded, so that's how they're doing so well. Actually, Southampton conceding just 10, but they're down in 12th at the moment. Most conceded is a tie between Brighton and Wolves at 22, and then Leeds on 21. Those 3 sides kind of stand out from the rest. And then on to the individual player stats. It's Erling Haaland leading the way in the goal-scoring charts once again. Can he get a second straight golden boot? Potentially. He's 8 from 10 so far. But Mbappe is right in behind on 7. And it's actually Odsonne Edouard who is the next player on 6. And then there's a few names in behind, including actually Jarosend, who has 5 goals for a Wolves side that are bottom of the Premier League. So he's having a great time. Nobody else is, though. You see Ansu Fati, Anthony, and Dominic Calvert-Lewin alongside him on 5. We go to expected goals. We actually find Martin Satriano is quite a way ahead of Sesko and Haaland and Edouard. But just the 3 goals so far for Satriano, so not quite as clinical as he has been previously. We check out assists. We find Phil Foden leading the way with 5. And then a few names actually on 4, including Pedro Preto, a name that we have mentioned at Liverpool. Federico Chiesa in there as well. Elias Solberg actually recording some assists now, rather than just key passes, which is good to see. And Nicolas Dominguez there for Spurs. If we do take a look at key passes, we find Phil Foden is up there as well on that one. But so is Sandri of Blackburn, which is quite an interesting one. And then Thomas Shankele also there for Burnley. I have probably completely butchered his name. If we look to chances created, we find Lukas Sucic for Tottenham actually leads the way. We saw him up here in these kind of statistics last season as well. So he's definitely slotted in well to that Spurs squad. Phil Foden and Federico Chiesa just 1 chance created behind, alongside Pedro Preto as well. We look to dribbles made. We actually find a Burnley player. Imagine Burnley having a Brazilian player. It's a winger, it's Angelo. He's completed the most dribbles by a long way, ahead of Josh Wilson-Esbrand, who is not a player that I'm familiar with in any way, but he's a left back. Well, we learn something new every day. As we look to the defensive statistics, a few guys tied for tackles won include Ian Motson for Leeds, a left back, Josh Wilson-Esbrand here on tackles as well, alongside Brighton teammate Camilo Romero, who is a defensive midfielder from Colombia, new gen player, who came in from Liverpool about a season and a half ago by the looks of it, or even 6 months ago. You see James Justin's up here again, Tim Eaves is round here, along with Trent Alexander-Arnold. We see key tackles has 2 guys on 5, which are David Zimmer for Czech Republic and Kevin Stoyle. I say for Czech Republic, of the Czech Republic for Everton. And then Kevin Stoyle, a new gen centre-back, English centre-back for Reading. So good to see him doing well. If we go down to goalkeepers, we find conceded is 2 keepers, Andre Onana and Ederson, though Onana has only played 4 games and Ergusan Shakir has played 6. That is very interesting to see them being rotated like that. Onana's listed as the backup. Saki is actually the important player, but he is hoping to leave the club. I'm not surprised if he's being rotated like this. That is very interesting. Nubel's conceded just 7 in 8, so he's going well. And then Aaron Ramsdale just 8 in 10, so not a bad job from him either. Clean sheets, it is Ederson who leads the way. Unfortunately, his regular rival Alisson did decide to hang up the gloves just before this season started, by the looks of things. But Aaron Ramsdale is his new competition this season, up on 5 clean sheets. Pascal Traore in his first Premier League season, 3 clean sheets for him so far. And finally, we take a look at XG prevented. We see Aaron Ramsdale topping that list with Lucas Chevalier in second, the Brentford goalkeeper. He is the regular keeper, so he's actually having an okay year so far. With Kelleher, I'm never going to try and say his first name ever, but he's there in third. If we look down, can we see any non-goalkeepers? I think we've had predominantly keepers actually in goal. See, Karl-Jakob Hein has had a terrible time of it for Leeds. He may well have not been the man. 21 conceded in 10 games and a 6.65 average rating. Leeds may regret selling Destinoglu, but we'll see. Gavin Bazunu not having a great year after he had a really good one a couple seasons ago. Matvei Safonov has dropped off again for Norwich as well. He had a really good season last year. I say really good. He had a decent season last year. Not so good so far this season. But that's where our November stop-off point will end. We're going to get to the beginning of January next, where we'll take a look at how the European competition group stages have gone. And then we'll also get to take a look at how the Premier League looks at roughly halfway through the season. We've moved forward now to the 1st of January 2031, and it does mean that the European group stages have concluded. We start with the Europa Conference League and how Arsenal got on, and actually they did top the group, 5 wins and 1 draw, that draw being at home against Frankfurt. Arsenal, a lot more convincing than I actually expected, 3 points clear of Frankfurt in the end. And Soligorsk do get third, not that it really matters, but it's Arsenal and Frankfurt going through, and Arsenal get to skip the first knockout round, so we'll find out who they play when we get to the April stop-off point and see how they got on. We move up to the Europa League, and we start with Group D, which contained Leicester City, and it's gone pretty well for them, 15 points, 5 wins, and 1 defeat, that 1 defeat in an away trip to CSKA, who do indeed come second in the group. But Leicester advance through pretty easily, 5 points clear in the end. And Newcastle do actually a tiny bit better. They get 5 wins and 1 draw. So they get 16 points, 9 points clear of Feyenoord in the end, which is huge. The 1 draw was away at Besiktas. But both Newcastle and Leicester will advance through to the last 16 stage. And finally, it's the Champions League, starting with Group B, which contained Chelsea. They also go 5 wins and 1 draw for a total of 16 points. Their 1 draw, surprisingly, was away at Slavia Prague, which was Prague's only point of the group stage. It's a bit strange that was their only dropped points. 2 wins over Atletico Madrid and over Porto. Slightly confusing, doesn't matter. Chelsea top the group. We see Manchester United are out of the Champions League. Nîmes actually do for them this time. We know they were close last season. I think it was only a 2-point difference between second and third then, but it was Manchester United that got second. Not this time. Nîmes with the big upset. And Manchester United will drop into the Europa League. So we'll see who they play in the first knockout round. I'll have to check back for that one. That surprised me a little bit. I thought it was a tough group, but to see Shakhtar only get a point is slightly surprising. United in the end get 9 points, 3 wins, 3 defeats, and they lost both games against Nîmes. Even a win at home over Bayern Munich couldn't recover it. So they go down to the Europa League. Manchester City actually do drop points. They had 1 draw. It was at home against Inter Milan. Although Inter Milan knocked out by Celtic. Celtic somehow beat Inter twice. Unbelievable performance from Celtic. They finished 5 points clear of Inter. That is amazing stuff. Great to see that. Scottish football really coming along with Celtic there. And finally, Group G, which contained Liverpool, they top the group in the end. It got a bit close, just a 1-point gap to AC Milan. They did have a loss in Milan, and they also had a draw at Dynamo Kiev, but they come through 13 points to top the group in the end. So going back down to the Europa League, now knowing that Manchester United will be taking part in that competition after getting eliminated from the group stages of the Champions League, Manchester United will take on Olympiacos in the first knockout round. A game that I see them winning, but there are some very tricky teams that have come down here. Real Madrid, by the way, being another one, and Borussia Dortmund. This Europa League is going to be awfully tasty. And for the Champions League knockout stages, Manchester City will take on AC Milan. That's a pretty tricky fixture there, actually. Definitely could have been a nicer one, but I still think Man City will come through that. Chelsea will take on Roma. I think that's one of the better games that they could have got. And Liverpool will take on OGC Nice. Again, a team that I think they should come through. So I'm going to say Man City, Chelsea and Liverpool all to advance to the quarterfinals. And then returning to the Premier League, and it's been a busy 2 months with a quarter of the league either sacking its manager or having its manager leave. We start with Leeds, who were the first to make a move. They sacked Paco Gémez, and end up bringing in Marcelo Gallardo, who is a name that we are familiar with. He was Spurs manager very, very briefly in 2024. Actually ended up being Argentina manager for quite a while, but now comes in at Leeds, a side that is really in a bit of a free fall. Had that one really great season when it made the Champions League, and has just been going backwards since. So we'll see what Marcelo Gallardo can do with it. The next move was Wolves sacking Trubisky. He left towards the end of November. They were actually quite quick. Only about 2 weeks later, they hired Blackburn manager Frank Lampard. So Lampard was at Blackburn for a good 5 years, and now takes over at Wolves to try and keep them up in the Premier League. Obviously, that meant that Blackburn then had a lot to do. And they currently have not hired a new manager almost a month on, which is quite interesting. Stuart Jones, currently the man in charge. He is the head of youth development. Seems like a lot of head of youth developments become caretaker managers in Football Manager. We've also seen, though, Leicester sacking Ruben Baraja. How badly is it going there? And they bring in ex-Leicester manager Arne Slot is back. Didn't have a great time at Leicester. Ended up going to Ajax after being sacked from the King Power. Then Real Madrid. Then Borussia Mönchengladbach. And now he makes a surprise return to Leicester after 5 years away. Hopefully this one works out better than the last time. And then finally, there's a lot of changes. Graham Potter, it has not gone any better. He has been sacked by Brighton. They're currently on a caretaker manager. We'll see who both Brighton and Blackburn actually end up hiring when we get to the February stop-off. But for now, let's take a quick look at how the Premier League table looks. And it is Manchester City blitzing away with the title. They even have a game in hand to go 13 points clear of Liverpool and Manchester United. And Chelsea are actually back in fourth at the moment, which is slightly surprising. Villa in fifth, by the way, but they have played a game or two more than a few sides. They played two more than Arsenal, who have a chance to close within 3 of Chelsea. Spurs in there as well. Newcastle have a game in hand to try and catch up a bit as well. Interesting that Leicester have sacked their manager, because they're actually 10th, which isn't terrible. They are only on 27 points, though. They are quite a way behind, as are Sheffield United. United and Leicester seem to have ended up in their own little world there. If we look to the bottom of the table, it's actually still reasonably close. Like Brighton are bottom, but they're only 3 points adrift, though they have played a game more, and actually 2 more than Norwich. But there's still quite a lot of teams that could be drawn into that relegation battle, which is similar to what happened last year. So it's almost like the bottom half is more interesting to watch than the top half. We see Erling Haaland still topping the charts. He's only one ahead of his own teammate in Benjamin Sesko. And Brenner really having a breakout season with Villa. He's got 11 goals on the season. Phil Foden running away at the top of the assist chart. But actually, Ederson has company at the top on clean sheets in Aaron Ramsdale. Well, I was going to say Ramsdale may have played less games, but actually both sides played 19. So they've probably played roughly the same. Just Manchester City are battering people. They've had one draw since, which was actually a 3-3 at Stamford Bridge. What a game that was. But Manchester City are very much on for a 4th straight Premier League title. Vincent Kompany has built a god squad there at the Etihad. But the next plan is to pick the save up at the beginning of February. We'll take another look at the Premier League table, though it will only be sort of 3 or 4 more games in. But more importantly, we're going to have a look at the January transfer window and see if there are any major transfers. We pick the save up now at the start of February. Well, it's actually the 4th of February, so we're a little bit past just to make sure that the window has closed. We're going to take a look at who Blackburn and Brighton have hired first off. Blackburn were the first to make a move just 3 days after our last stop-off point, actually. And they have brought in Roberto Martinez from West Ham, who, of course, was in charge of West Ham in the Championship, but makes a step back to the Premier League for now. We'll see if Blackburn stay up. I feel like West Ham should come back up, so that felt like a safer option, but he decides he's going to give it a go with Blackburn, wants to be in the Premier League now. Is that going to be a wise move? Brighton actually hired Gini Wijnaldum from Burnley, so Burnley require a new manager. Wijnaldum somehow kept Burnley up last season with a last day miracle. And now he's going to try and do the same with Brighton, who were bottom of the league. So good luck with that one. Is Wijnaldum turning into the Sam Allardyce of this save? That's a comparison I never thought I'd be making. Burnley currently under caretaker management with Mike Jackson, the under-23s manager. So there you go, not ahead of youth development. But we'll see in the April stop-off point who Burnley actually hire. But with the end of January also brings the end of the transfer window, and an interesting couple of transfers have happened here where Liverpool and Bayern Munich have swapped players. Liverpool have sent Henrik Larsson, not that one. This one's a Danish winger, 23 years old. Played a little bit for Liverpool, 41 Premier League appearances in the end. Was actually playing very consistently in this season and was doing okay. Couple goals, 3 assists on a 7 average rating. And has headed to Bayern Munich for a potential £57 million. Ignore the 5.9 in his Bayern Munich league debut. In fact, just his Bayern Munich debut in general. He had a shocker. But he does look like a pretty darn good player. Can play wing back, also can play just straight up as a winger. He leaves the league, but going the other way from Bayern Munich to Liverpool is 24-year-old French midfielder Marvin Wattio. I don't think I've said that right, but I have no idea how to pronounce that. Again, looks like a relatively good player. I mean, overall, you're certainly not going to turn this player down. They spent 48 million on him, which actually in the 2 transfers, they could potentially be making a profit here. Was playing pretty regularly for Bayern Munich since about 2028-29, without quite breaking that 7 average rating. He was still playing well, but he does actually break the 7 rating in his Liverpool debut, which is quite nice to see. So an interesting swap move there between Bayern Munich and Liverpool. The next biggest move is Manchester City buying 19-year-old Spanish midfielder Pep Valdez. And he is listed as a wonder kid. He is very, very good on the ball. My goodness me. Yeah, 17 first touch, 18 passing, 18 vision, and 15 technique at just 19 years of age. This man could be someone that we see in this save for quite a long time, and he just happens to have joined a god squad in Manchester City. Hopefully they don't just bench him and never play him. That would be terrible, but we'll see what happens. Go down a little bit further, we find, oh, they've made another move. They've brought in Ivorian 22-year-old striker Ben Bamba from Club Brugge. Listed as a squad player again, was netting with reasonable consistency in Belgium. Quite a big move at £36.5 million. For a player I really don't know how much he's going to play, especially with Haaland and Sesko in front of him. And Sesko, well, neither Sesko or Haaland are old. Like, Haaland I think is 30. So, I worry a little bit for Ben Bamba. I don't think he's going to play all that much. But Man City bringing in some young players. We see Newcastle actually gaining £33 million in selling Oscar, who is now 32, Spanish attacking midfielder. He heads out to AC Milan. We scroll down a little bit further. We see Ed Hewison is back, but in the other end of Manchester. That's quite interesting. So Hewison was somebody we mentioned at the beginning of last season because we saw that he went off to Fulham. He scored a cup final winning goal. I think it was the Charity Shield or Community Shield. And then we saw that he immediately was gone to Fulham. Manchester United turn around and bring him in. He is listed as a squad player. He's a winger, to be fair, so it's not another striker, thank goodness. But this is okay. Ed Hewison does a Jadon Sancho. Goes from Manchester City to Manchester United, just indirectly. Maybe he plays a little bit, maybe he doesn't. Although Conrad de la Fuente is gone, actually. He's headed off to Juve, which I suppose makes the Hewison move make more sense. They actually happened on the same day, so they had that pretty well planned out. Weston McKennie's gone. Didn't notice that one at the start of the season. Mark Guehi's back. Mark Guehi's back in the Premier League. He was at Real Sociedad for a really long time, actually. He comes back age 30 with Aston Villa. Villa, obviously, as we've mentioned from the last month's stop-off, making a push for Europe this season, which they haven't done for a little while. We'll see what they can do. Sheffield United at it again. Matteo Gabbia, another 31-year-old. centre-back coming in from Benfica. Going down another full page, and this is probably where we'll hold on the transfers. Aston Villa with another one, actually, and they turn to Nîmes, obviously a side that have just blown up out of nowhere in the last couple of seasons. They bring in Aaron Molinas, Argentinian attacking midfielder. Looks like a really good player on the ball. We'll see how much he gets to play. May not be a whole lot. We'll see what he can do. Actually, Joshua Le Carpentier made that loan spell with Fulham actually became permanent, which is why Man United really had to get Alexander Nubel. He was a goalkeeper that we'd seen a couple of times. We're focusing on 2031. See Richarlison, but not that one. This was a new-gen Brazilian called Richarlison. Came in, he was playing for Inter de Limeira. He came from actually the third tier of Brazilian football, which is pretty impressive. Maritimo picked him up on a free and he did all right. Randomly, Chelsea just never play him, but they've actually made a pretty good profit on selling him to Southampton. He has made 6 appearances already, 1 goal, and a 7.1 average rating is certainly not bad. But Richarlison, we find Billy Marsden, another Southampton sale on a young English player that they had. He's gone to Gladbach for potentially just over £20 million. And then again, Sheffield United here again, Raul Bellanova, a 30-year-old Italian right-back. The turnover in this Sheffield United squad is very high. And they've also got rid of Pham Dan Nam, a Vietnamese new-gen centre-back. That's one of the stranger nationalities I've seen on a new-gen. He's now in the Championship with Fulham. Did play a few times for Sheffield United, actually. Would he be the first Vietnamese Premier League player? I feel like he must be. The Southampton actually spending some money to bring in Elias Machuca, an Argentinian centre-back. He was just 27, actually. It's not a bad little move there. But the last little bit for the February stop-off is to see how the Premier League table is looking. How the Premier League table looks after 25 games of the Premier League season. So there's been sort of between 4 and 6, depending on how many games teams have played previously. It's Manchester City still at the top. They have had a couple draws, though, with Arsenal and Manchester United. They are 10 points clear of Chelsea. Chelsea recovering into second again. They're 4 points clear of Liverpool, who are 4 points clear of Arsenal and Manchester United. Yeah, it's a pretty regular top 10 at this point. Villa are only 1 point behind Newcastle. Newcastle have actually played a game more. They must have just played Southampton recently, because they're both on 26 and everyone else is on 25. If we look to the bottom of the table, we see that it's actually the 3 promoted sides that are now the bottom 3. Wolves have pulled themselves out of danger, for now anyway. They're 3 points clear of Blackburn. It's Blackburn the side that look like they could get out of there, but again, not looking good for the 3 newly promoted sides. Again, really, really quick look at some of the player stats. Erling Haaland pulling clear at the top, actually, ahead of Kylian Mbappe, who's returned into second. And our good friend Martin Satriano is there once again in third. Phil Foden still topping assists with 10. Shota Shortai has popped up. He's got 8. And Aaron Ramsdale leads clean sheets, which is quite interesting. He's looking for his first Premier League Golden Glove. What we're going to do now is we're going to go forward to the April stop-off point, where we've got a few little things to cover. We've got the European knockout stages. They'll be into the quarterfinals, so we'll see how the English side's getting on there. And then we'll also take a look back at the Premier League as it nears its conclusion, and also get into some team and player stats once again. We're forward now to the 1st of April, and we're going to start off by taking a look at how the European club competitions are going so far. We start again with the Europa Conference League, where Arsenal got straight through to the last 16 stage after winning their group. They were drawn against Hajduk Split of Croatia. They come through that pretty easily, 5-1. And they will take on Lyon in the quarterfinals, which is possibly one of the hardest draws. After Lyon came through 5-1 against the new Saints of Wales. What a run from them. We head up to the Europa League, where there are now 3 Premier League sides to look for from the knockout stages after Manchester United were knocked out of the Champions League. As mentioned, they had Olympiacos in the first knockout round. They come through that 3-1, and then a very tricky last 16 tie with Hertha Berlin, which they actually just sneak through 4-3, and they will take on CSKA in the quarterfinals, who have knocked out Ajax and Juventus. So they're having a very good run this season. We saw Newcastle come in at the last 16 stage. They got Real Madrid in the last 16, but not only that, they've gone and beaten them 3-1. Incredible stuff from Newcastle. They will face Marseille in the quarterfinals. However, Leicester got absolutely hammered by Porto in the last 16, 5-1. Pretty tricky draw there. I said that some of the teams coming down from the Champions League were going to be very difficult. Unfortunately, Porto proved way too powerful. And they actually make an all-Portuguese quarterfinal against Benfica, so that will be an interesting tie. And finally, the Champions League, where there were 3 representatives in the last 16. We start with Liverpool. They have come through against OGC Nice 5-2, and they will take on more French opposition in Nîmes in the quarterfinals. Nîmes have just knocked out Barcelona 3-2. I know this is a Premier League save, and I know that we're looking at the English sides. Nîmes are my favourite story in this save. This is an incredible 2-year run from them. I think their Champions League run comes to an end here against Liverpool, but it's still an unbelievable run. We look to Chelsea. They came through 5-0 against Roma, though they get a very tricky quarterfinal in Bayern Munich, who only actually just overcame Celtic, so maybe it won't be as hard as I think. Manchester City, the other side to look for. They dispatch AC Milan 6-1. They will take on PSG in the quarterfinals after PSG came through 4-0 against Lazio. An interesting all-Spanish tie being the other quarterfinal in Real Sociedad versus Atletico Madrid. Maybe not the 2 Spanish sides you would expect to be in the quarterfinals of the Champions League, but still very interesting. Looking back to the Premier League, and we can look who Burnley have hired as their new manager, and this is unbelievable. They've gone from Gini Wijnaldum to Cristiano Ronaldo managing at Turf Moor. What on earth has gone down here? So he retired from playing in 2024, took over the manager's job at his home team in Sporting Lisbon, which is a great story. Then moved on to Celta Vigo, where I assume he was sacked, and he'd actually been out of work for a little bit. But Cristiano Ronaldo is Burnley manager. He's not actually even got his pro license. He's currently studying for it. This is very strange, but I'm completely behind it. Wijnaldum and Ronaldo as Premier League managers. Well, let's have a look how the table looks with 8 or 7 in some cases games to go. It is Manchester City leading the way by 12 points ahead of Chelsea, who have a 7-point cushion back to Liverpool and Manchester United. Once again, it's a very similar top 10 to what we've seen in the past few seasons. And then towards the bottom half, Brighton still 4 points adrift. Blackburn just 1 adrift, but have played a game more. And then Brentford just 1 adrift of Norwich. Though Leeds could still be in a bit of trouble, as could Burnley. They have played a game extra, though they are 4 points clear of Brentford. So they'd be clear even if Brentford won that game. But to the middle of the table, we see Reading likely to stay up again. So Reading doing a really good job under John Terry. This would take them into a 3rd straight Premier League season. which will be really good for helping that consistency, bringing in the money, and hopefully making them a regular Premier League side. You see the likes of Southampton and Wolves. Wolves have made a very good recovery under Frank Lampard, who's actually turned things around, to be fair to him. He was doing quite well with Blackburn. He's doing well with Wolves. There was a couple of spells where he really looked like he was struggling. Frank Lampard looks like he's got the hang of things now. By the way, Frank Lampard versus Cristiano Ronaldo in manager. Okay, this is getting interesting. Southampton here. Everton, actually, the side making the chase towards the top 10. Though they have played the game more, as have Southampton. What we can do is get into the stats just very quickly on team stats. Manchester City actually not running away with it this time. Chelsea have actually scored the same number of goals at 70. Liverpool there on 64. Least scored. Brentford at just 23 and Brighton with just 25. And then if we move down to conceded, it is Manchester City conceding just 24 goals. And actually Arsenal on 28. And they're both quite a long way ahead of Manchester United and Liverpool. This is Chelsea's issue then. They're scoring as many as Man City are, but they've conceded 14 more goals, which is definitely costing them. Blackburn have conceded the most goals at 56, with Leeds on 54 and Brighton 53. Moving into the player stats, and it's really, really looking like Erling Haaland is going to take home a second straight golden boot. He's up on 21 goals in 28 games. Kylian Mbappe there in second with 16. And then a list of three guys on 15, in Ansu Fati, Jarasend and Martin Satriano. Jarasend has really been underrated, and he has been a huge reason why Wolves have recovered as much as they have. And he had 5 when they were bottom of the league after 10 games. So he's picked up 10 more since, and now Wolves are doing a lot better. So really well done to him, and nice to see Ansu Fati starting in net as well. Sesko there on 14, so he does seem to have taken a step back to Erling Haaland. We look for assists, we find that it is Pedro Pretel now topping the way on 13, with Phil Foden and Shola Shortire on 11 each. Kylian Mbappe and Kai Havertz just in behind as well. Key passes is actually led by a Wolves player, Colombian attacking midfielder Jaminton Campas leads the way by 1 ahead of Phil Foden, who's a couple ahead of Shola Shortire. Then we actually look to chances created. It's actually Harvey Elliott that leads the way. 18 chances created and 6 assists for him. And then Phil Foden and Shola Shortire just in behind. Dribbles made, still being led by Angelo. Oh, Calgari's back. Formerly of Fulham, now playing for Blackburn at 29 years of age. I remember when he signed for Fulham, and I was like, that's not going to help them stay up. And then he absolutely helped them stay up for a season. Yeah, so I just see his name now, and I'm like, oh, you completely proved me wrong. Thank you. We go to the defensive statistics. We've got 2 guys leading the way on tackles 1, and it's Tim Eaves and James Justin. How is Tim Eaves getting on, by the way? The English fullback. 13 caps for England now. Over 100 Premier League appearances for Manchester City. Yeah, he's quite good, isn't he, really? He's a very good player. Tied with, yeah, as we mentioned, James Justin, who's now 33. And Kylian Mbappe's here on tackling again for reasons. I will never know why. He's just always there. You see, key tackles, we have Kevin Stoyle, the new gen English Reading centre-back there. And then Chris Mepham, Bogard and Kekai up there as well. So Jared Branthwaite actually leading key headers, playing for Brighton. Noah Katterback leading blocks, the German fullback. And then Nathan Collins, most shots blocked. He's still at Burnley? He's always at Burnley, right? Yeah, he's been there literally the whole time. He's now 29 years of age, so he's really stuck it out with them. And Francisco Ortega with the most fouls. We finish it off with the goalkeepers. Conceded, lowest is Ederson at just 24. Aaron Ramsdale and Alexander Nubel with 28 each. Clean sheets is actually a tie now. Aaron Ramsdale and Ederson completely running away with it at 14 each. It's a battle between them for who wins that. Got Trubin there in second on 9, and then Pascal Traore and Juan Musso with 8 each. Pretty impressive from Lucas Chevalier, actually, with 7 for a Brentford side that's in the relegation zone. And then if we finish it off, we will look to the XG prevented. And it is actually Lucas Chevalier who leads that one, with David Raya right in behind him. And Dominic Livakovic actually coming in third. So 3 names that you maybe wouldn't expect so much. You have got Ramsdale and Ederson in here as well, as Kelleher is still up here too. Traore is doing an okay job. Actually, the keepers are not doing too badly this season. I'm trying to see if I can find any non-goalkeepers. I don't think I can at the moment. Is Popovic a goalkeeper? Yes, he is. Okay, I think we're actually on all goalkeepers this time. Bazuni's not had the season that he had a couple of years ago. Popovic struggling. Nubel's actually struggling with Manchester United. That's quite interesting. And then even when Alfie Whiteman's come in, he hasn't done too well either. But that is our April stop-off point. We're going to see what there is left to play for when we get to the final day of the season. Roughly 6 or 7 more games will have gone down by that point. It looks like we might have a little bit of a relegation battle, potentially a battle for Champions League and European football in general, but it looks like Manchester City will be wrapping up another Premier League title. I've actually just thought, there is one more thing that I haven't checked, and it's the Carabao Cup, and your winners are... It's Manchester City. It's their 3rd piece of silverware on the season by the beginning of March. They beat Newcastle in extra time, so Newcastle ran it pretty close. Would have been a good chance to make Europe as well for Newcastle. Chiesa gave Man City the lead. David Ayala actually then got the equaliser with 8 minutes to go. But it's Liam Delap with the winning goal in extra time. Did he come on for Sesko? No. Well, maybe not. Delap got subbed off? I'm not actually sure. What happened to Sesko, by the way? Because if it's a major injury, that could be quite a flip for the end of Man City's season. It was not a major injury. He is already back after a month, so it may have been a couple of weeks. But Liam Delap winning Manchester City their 3rd trophy of the season. But we will now go ahead to the final day of the Premier League season, and we'll see what there is to play for. We've moved on ahead to the final day of the season here on the 18th of May, and as you can see, unsurprisingly, Manchester City have indeed wrapped up the Premier League title. Though just 92 points this season, I think this might be their worst tally in 4 years. So, I mean, they're going backwards a little bit, I guess. Just the 10 points ahead of Chelsea, who have obviously wrapped up Champions League football, as have Manchester United. So they will return to the Champions League next season, despite being knocked out in the groups this year. Hopefully they have a better time of it next season. But we do have a battle for 4th place. We have Liverpool and Arsenal, with Arsenal just 1 point behind. Liverpool have a tricky game. They've got to go to Newcastle, and Newcastle still have a chance of getting the Europa Conference League spot. So Newcastle do have something to play for here. And Arsenal host Aston Villa, who also can make the Europa Conference League spot. There is a straight-up battle between Sheffield United, Newcastle and Aston Villa. Just 1 point between them. Sheffield United head to Everton, who have absolutely nothing to play for, other than trying to finish top of the bottom half of the table. They could technically still finish ahead of Wolves if they win, and Wolves were to lose. Wolves host Leicester on the final day, who have absolutely nothing to play for, sat in their own world in 10th. We look to the bottom half of the table. Brighton and Brentford, unfortunately, both already down on 27 points. There is a slight chance that a change happens at the bottom of the table if a couple of results go a certain way. Norwich can technically go down, but an awful lot would have to happen. They would have to lose. Leeds would have to get at least a draw, and Blackburn would have to win with an 11-goal swing between them and Norwich. That feels extremely unlikely. The only one that could happen is there is a chance Leeds could still go down. Leeds go to Manchester City, which is very losable, and Blackburn host Manchester United, which is also very losable. So Blackburn require a complete miracle to stay up realistically. We see goal scorer chart. Haaland looks like he has confirmed his golden boot, unless Resend or Satriano happen to score 5 in the final game of the season. Doable but unlikely. Shola Shortire, 16 assists on the season. Wow. He needs one more standout game to get Sheffield United European football. Aaron Ramsdale has confirmed the Golden Glove. He is 2 ahead of Ederson. But with all that set up, we're now going to jump ahead a couple of weeks to make sure every competition involving English sides is done. And we're going to go through all of them and see who wins what trophies and how the Premier League table looks at the end of the season. And we are now here at the 1st of June 2031. The 2030-31 season has now come to a close. And as normal, we're going to start off with the European competitions. And congratulations are in order for Arsenal, who are the winners of the Europa Conference League. They came through against Lyon in the quarterfinals 4-2. Took on more French opposition in Lille, who they just smacked 6-0. And then a 3-1 win in the final over Italy's Fiorentina. We'll take a quick look at how that game went down. But Arsenal will definitely play Europa League, which we already knew. They might have Champions League, though, which then begs the question, how is the league going to work out if Arsenal jump from winning the Conference League up to playing Champions League straight away? That's dependent on Liverpool's result, though, so we'll ignore that for now. We get Arsenal goals from David Pena, a 20-year-old French striker who I somehow missed. That's why I missed it. He was only £2.5 million from Athletic Bilbao. What a signing. 12 goals in 33 Premier League games this season and scores in the Europa Conference League final. David Pena, what a signing that is. Martin Odegaard nets the second. There was a goal then from Fiorentina to make it a little bit nervy, but in the end, Tommaso Pobega puts the nail in the coffin in the 90th minute, and Arsenal win a piece of silverware. We shift up to the Europa League, and once again, congratulations are in order as Manchester United win the Europa League. We knew that they had Champions League football anyway from finishing 3rd in the Premier League table. I think technically Liverpool could catch them, but that would have only been 4th anyway. But Manchester United come through CSKA 4-1 and then actually had to play Newcastle in the semi-finals after Newcastle beat Marseille 2-1 on aggregate. Man United come through 4-1. They play Benfica in the final and get a 2-0 win. Once again, we'll have a quick look at who got the goals and just generally how the game went. It was completely dominated by Manchester United. Jadon Sancho opened scoring in the 9th minute, and Alexander Isak actually scored in the 90th minute. So Isak is still there. You can see the 11 that they put out to start the game. Rashford, Sancho, and Saka, just an English front three, which is lovely to see. Bruno Fernandes still doing his thing in that midfield alongside Szoboszlai and Ravella. You see a very different defence and goalkeeper. Nubel getting a 7.9. in a game where he made one save. And finally, the Champions League, and I didn't want to say it because I didn't want to curse it, but it happened again. Chelsea versus Manchester City in the Champions League final. And they just keep alternating because it's Chelsea who win the Champions League back once again. We'll take a look at how the three sides who were remaining by the quarterfinal stage got on. Liverpool did indeed overcome Nîmes, but not without a bit of trouble. It was 5-3 in the end. Chelsea overcoming Bayern Munich 4-2. That then meant that it was a Liverpool-Chelsea semi-final. Chelsea coming through that 4-2. Manchester City's route was a 3-0 aggregate win over PSG, and then a 4-2 win in the semi-finals over Real Sociedad. And then a very, very interesting final. Very similar to how the Community Shield went down. Except this time, Chelsea get their penalty revenge by learning how to score them, which is always a good start. Strangely enough, Chelsea took a 2-0 lead this time. Tuguiri and Lukaku, and then Sesko and Pino levelled it up. By 30 minutes, it was 2-2. No more goals after that. And then Chelsea net all 5 of their penalties, including Trubin scoring a penalty. That's the goalkeeper. And it's Bernardo Silva who misses the penalty. So Chelsea are your Champions League winners. Prevents Manchester City from winning 5 trophies, I believe. Because they won the Super Cup, the Community Shield, the League Cup, the Premier League. They may have won an FA Cup. That is our next port of call. This Manchester City team just gets more ridiculous by the second. They won a quadruple last year. They win I think it's a quintuple this season. 5 trophies as they also win the FA Cup. 3-2 in extra time. There were 3 goals in the first 4 minutes of the FA Cup final. Odsonne Edouard gave Liverpool the lead. Then Erling Haaland scores twice in 2 minutes. That was 4 minutes gone. And then Odsonne Edouard in the 16th minute, making it 2-2. And then Federico Chiesa in the 94th minute, so early into extra time, ends up scoring the winning goal. Manchester City win 5 trophies on the season. And finally, to round the season out, here is the final Premier League table. Manchester City end up on 95 points. They beat Leeds 3-1 on the final day. It, in the end, didn't matter that Leeds lost that game. They do stay up just by 2 points. Chelsea still end up 10 points behind, so they had a 2-0 win over Reading in there as well. It is Arsenal who grabbed Champions League football. Arsenal beat Aston Villa 2-0. Liverpool slipped to a 2-1 defeat at Newcastle. So Arsenal won't play Europa League football next season. They'll be playing Champions League. Wow, Newcastle. Even with that win, though, that was not enough for Newcastle because Sheffield United get a 1-0 win over Everton, and it is enough to secure 7th place. And Sheffield United will once again play European football. For the second time in this save, they played Europa League a couple seasons back, where they made the final. They now play Europa Conference League, and they must feel like they're going to be one of the favourites for that competition. Newcastle, as mentioned, they did win. And as mentioned, Villa lost to Arsenal, so they miss out on Europe as well. If we look to the relegation, it is the 3 sides that came up that do head back down. Brentford actually won on the final day. They beat Burnley 3-0, which got them up to 18th, but they were already down. Blackburn were the side that could have stayed up. Unfortunately, they fall 2-1 to Manchester United on the final day. So Leeds and Burnley... Leeds and Norwich live to breathe again, but Norwich actually beat Spurs 2-0. So Norwich quite happily stay up in the end. You see Reading, they'll be entering a third straight Premier League season, so really well done on their part. But to finish off the video, as we normally do, we'll check out a couple of team stats and the individual statistics. Goals was actually not topped by Manchester City for the first time in a very long time. It's actually Chelsea who net 89 times to Manchester City's 85. Obviously, Man City win the league, so I don't think they really care that much. Brentford scored just 30 goals on the season, that being their big issue, with Blackburn and Leeds scoring just 34 times. We look to conceded, and we actually find two sides in Arsenal and Manchester City. So Arsenal really riding off the back of their defensive skill, which is a confusing sentence, but there we go. Sheffield United conceding 45, which was actually tied third. Huge jump from Arsenal and Man City up to Chelsea and Sheffield United. You see, most conceded is Leeds with 70 goals conceded, but they just about survived. So it was a bit of a close run thing. You see Blackburn and Brighton there on 67 each conceded. They both do go down. And then into the individual player stats, Erling Haaland does indeed take the golden boot with 23 goals on the season. We have a three-way tie for second on 20. It is Benjamin Sesko, Jarosend and Martin Satriano. I think Sesko has broken 100 Premier League goals in 4 seasons because he's matched his tally of last season, which is actually his tied lowest, which is insane. We nip to assists, and as mentioned prior to the final game of the season, that's actually taken by Shola Shortire, who had an incredible end to the season, flying up that chart and actually taking top assister by 3 entire assists, ahead of Pedro Pretzel, which is really good to see him becoming one of the world-class players in the Premier League, from Peru, which is not one of the greatest development nations. It's certainly not a bad one, but interesting to see as Phil Foden and Kylian Mbappe tie for third. Key passes was indeed topped by Jaminton Campaz of Wolves. He's ahead of Shola Shortire and Phil Foden. Good to see Yasser Asprilla up there again as well, actually. And then Pedro Cerezo in there, a new-gen player for Wolves, who is a striker. Well, winger. Listed as a winger/striker. Then we look to chances created. Actually a three-way tie. Phil Foden, Harvey Elliott and Shola Shortire, all English players. And with James Justin, just one behind them. So the domestic players doing pretty well there. If we look to... we can find dribbles made, that's what I was looking for. Angelo actually ends up tied with Shola Shortire in the end, who... what a season from him. Manchester United must at least slightly regret selling him, because he has been absolutely phenomenal for Sheffield United. There could be heavy interest in him. Not at the moment. Surely there's got to be some big interest in Shola Shortire soon. We head to defensive statistics. Tackles won ends up being topped by Ian Mutson, the new Leeds left-back. Not the new Leeds left-back. Where did we see him earlier? I thought I saw him as a transfer. I know I saw him in the tackles won towards the back end of the season, in the April stop-off, but I didn't realise he... I don't know why I thought he was a new signing. Ignore that. It's fine. We go to key tackles, and Kevin Stoyle stayed on top of that one ahead of KK of Aston Villa. Reading getting, as I mentioned, third straight Premier League season. See Noah Katterback on blocks. Matthias de Ligt with the most key headers in his first season as a Premier League player. Nathan Collins top shots blocked. 2 guys topping the fouls in Francisco Ortega, a player we've seen a couple of times in the past couple of years. And also Thomas Ruiz Diaz playing for Spurs as a fullback. Looks like a really, really good player. When did he join? I do not remember this man. £41 million. How did I not see this one? I don't know, but he played every single game this year and averaged a 7.1, so pretty good effort from him. And the final position to check up on before we get to the end of the video is the goalkeepers. As mentioned, the Golden Glove is going to Aaron Ramsdale after keeping clean sheets in 50% of the games that he played. He gets 19 of them. Ederson 3 behind on 16, with a few guys on 11 actually, in Trubin, Musso and Fernandes. Not a bad season from Pascal Traore either in his first Premier League season at just 24 years of age when he came in. He gets 9 clean sheets, so not a bad little effort from him. And then we will jump down to the expected goals prevented. And it's unfortunate for Lucas Chevalier, who actually tops this stat for Brentford. But Brentford do go down. There is interest in him from Leeds and Sheffield United, along with Getafe in Spain. So I think a transfer is probably on the cards for him. David Raya also having a really good season for Sheffield United. See how much longer he stays as first choice. He was actually brought in this season. I didn't clock that, because of course Newball left at the beginning of the year. So David Raya brought in from Aston Villa, and has a really, really good season. Well, there we go. Well done, David Raya. Ramsdale up there as well. Pascal Traore actually has a good season. That's good to see from a young goalkeeper. Etienne Green does all right with Wolves. Daniel Peretz, who is the new starting keeper for Aston Villa, plays all but one game. After a £13 million move from Malaga, there were a few keeper moves that I just completely missed for reasons. We see Safanov and Kelleher recovering a little. Actually, Kelleher may have dropped off. Safanov recovered. Oh, please, not again. No, he actually is a goalkeeper. It's all right. He's actually a keeper. I thought it had happened again. Burnley love putting outfield players in goal. He's actually a keeper, please. No, he's actually a keeper as well. So Burnley had 3 different keepers registering in these statistics. But that is it for the 2030-2031 season. Manchester City rack up a 4th straight Premier League title and 8th in total in the save, now that we are technically 10 seasons in, but only 9 seasons in video-wise, because we skipped the first season to get to 2022. Who is going to stop them? Chelsea appear to be the only option and the only side that can actually even vaguely dent Man City, because at least they won the Champions League. There's really not much else going on, although Arsenal do win a Europa Conference League. Man United win a Europa League as well, so there were a couple of the trophies. They just had to go into Europe in order to do it, because Man City are terrifying. Unfortunately, the 3 sides that came up for this season all go straight back down. It'll be interesting to see who the 3 new sides will be, whether we're going to get 3 sides that we're used to, or if we can get a bit of a random 1 or 2 sides that we haven't seen before. But if you have enjoyed the video, thank you for watching all the way through. I know this one may have gone a little bit longer, I'm not exactly sure. If you have liked it, do hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, share the videos, comment anything you think I maybe should add into these videos, or anything maybe I should take out of them. The next video that I have planned for this series is going to be a bit of a review video instead of doing another season. So I'm going to take a look at teams that have been in the Premier League through the save, especially ones that are current Premier League sides, looking at what their teams actually look like. Because what I don't want to happen is to get like 20 years in and we have no idea who's where. So every sort of 9 or 10 seasons, I want to try and do a stop-off video just to round everything up, see what teams have won, what players they've got at the moment. And yeah, so that's the plan for the next one. But hopefully, I'll see you in that one.